below the heart. Okay, so now this was the aorta. This big pipe right here continues to be the aorta. So you don't have to call it descending or thoracic, but that continues. What do you think this big pipe is right here? There's only 3 things that will go through the diaphragm to get down here. One will be the aorta.
Inferior vena cava?
There's the inferior vena cava. It got snapped off the heart. What else is down here? What's that little sac called that stores everything you've been eating?
Stomach.
How does food get there?
Oh.
How do you pronounce it, Chris?
Esophagus.
Esophagus. Don't you remember that video we saw?
Is it
No.
what everyone's been saying that wrong?
You remember that silly video I showed you, like Saturday Night Live, where they mispronounced all the words last
Oh,
quarter?
yeah.
The urine test and evacuated your bowels and all that stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
They've got a polio up in their anal canal. Yeah. We think it's a big C, canker. We don't know if it's benign or malignant. Yeah,
Nice.
benign, yeah. Anyway, so that's the esophagus right there. We'll talk about that more with the digestive system. All right, let's move all this stuff out of the way. You guys will have an easier time seeing from over my shoulder because all these organs, I'm displacing them anatomically. Otherwise, I got to cut them out. I don't want to cut stuff out yet because we're going to use stuff later. Okay, so this great big old pipe that continues down is the aorta. Great big old pipe. See these little red tubes come off it? You don't need to know those for the lab exam, but all those red pipes are going to go right underneath all the ribs, and those are all intercostal arteries. You'll see on the chart, every place where the aorta goes down through the chest, there's a pair of little red tubes that carry and supply blood to the areas between each of the ribs. So all these little red pink things, boink, 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 those are all intercostal arteries. Now, right here, that little mound, that's where the diaphragm ended. As soon as you get through the diaphragm, we start getting into some branching out here in the lower abdominal body. So let's look at some of the arteries that are down here. So right there is the boundary. This is where the aorta is going to continue all the way down here for a while. See this first big tube right there? This first big red tube that comes off of the aorta, right there, that's called the celiac artery, celiac. The celiac has 3 branches to it. Follow the celiac artery up. First branch off it goes to the stomach. It is called the left gastric. It's the only vessel in here we're going to have a left or a right where you need to know. If there's only a left side, it's called left gastric. Follow that red pipe, continues up, and the red pipe continues. There's another branch right here. That branch goes to the liver. That is called the hepatic artery. And what's left of this pink tube right there goes to the spleen. What do you think it's called?
Splenic?
Splenic or splenic artery. So they're actually in alphabetical order, which is nice. C, celiac, first branch left gastric, G after C. Next comes hepatic, H after G, and what's left is splenic, S after H. So that's the most branching you're going to get off of one of these tubes. The rest is just mostly one tube until we get down to where the aorta ends. So celiac artery, first large artery off the aorta once you get into the abdominal body cavity, once you get through this diaphragm, right there.
Where does that go
First,
again?
it supplies the upper portion of the abdominal body cavity. So the celiac has a left gastric, supplies blood to the stomach. It has a hepatic, supplying blood to the liver. And what's left of that pink tube that continues on is the splenic, supplies blood to the spleen. And here's the spleen. The spleen's normally anatomically on this side of the body, but I've shoved it all over. So alphabetically, celiac, gastric, hepatic, splenic, right there. Okay, next big tube is a single tube, and this is called the superior mesenteric. Mesenteric is pretty much the upper intestinal area. So that is a superior mesenteric, a single tube all by itself, just like the celiac was a single tube. Superior, or it can be called greater mesenteric. Superior or greater mesenteric. Now we come down to a pair of arteries. There's going to go off to the left and the right. I'm not going to dissect out the right ones, but we will do the left ones. Okay, first one we're going to find that's easy to do, there's the kidney. Here's a big red pipe that comes off the aorta and goes to the kidney, so that's a renal artery. I dissected a bunch of fat out of here already, but that's the renal artery, so it would come off the aorta kind of right underneath here and go to the kidney, so that's a renal artery. See this red tube right there next to the blue tube? That red tube is above the kidney, and it's called either the suprarenal or the adrenolumbar. Adrenal glands are above the kidney, and we're also in the lumbar region of the cat. It's just the cervical region was up here. It's got a long thoracic region. We're way down the lower back of the cat. So this little pink tube that comes off above the renal artery. This is adrenolumbar, or the suprarenal artery. And there's a pair of them, one on this side, one will go to the other side. The big pink tube, this is a great landmark, a great place to reference and find where you're at, because there's the kidney, so that's a renal artery. Follow the aorta down. It continues down, and there is a pink tube right here, small one, and there's a pink tube that got broke, comes off to this side. There should be a pair of pink tubes. These pink tubes, now this is a male cat, so there's the scrotum on the outside of the body and the penis, everything's tucked and covered with fur, but that artery right here is called the gonadal or the spermatic artery. Now, in your book, turn a page on your book if you would. Ashley, is that your book or is that yours, Shannon?
Nope.
Okay, turn a page again, again, again. We need to get the arteries that are below the heart. There we are. Keep going, keep going. Good, there. Okay, now bring that book around, just so that one page is showing, so that way you don't get gloppy stuff all over it. So take the other page underneath it, fold it in half. There you go. Okay, if you guys look at this cat, you're going to notice something weird about it. On the anatomical right side of the hat, it's got a testis. It's male. Look what it's got on the anatomical left side, an ovary. Now, there are no cats that have both of them, but for the sake of simplicity for this argument, for this diagram, all the plumbing is pretty much the same, but if you have a male cat with the testes way down here, this pink tube that comes right off after the renal artery, it goes all the way down to the testis. That's called the gonadal or the spermatic or testicular artery. And that's what this little pink thing is right here. Gonadal or spermatic. It got broken off on the other side, but here's this pink tube. See that pink tube going down there? And by the way, this little colorless white thing, that's the vas deferens. That's what carries sperm up and over and around into the passageways that allow it to provide sperm cell when it fertilizes a female. So these little white tubes right there, ladies, those are the sources of all the troubles you've had if you've ever been pregnant before. Okay, so those are the little guys that carry sperm cells from the testes up into the body of the male. There's one from the right side, one from the left side. And they will join to what's called the spermatic artery. There's also a spermatic vein. They join with the vas deferens and form a tube that goes all the way to the testes to supply oxygen and deliver waste and carry sperm out of the testes. We'll talk about that later. That's why I don't want you cutting around down here. I don't want you cutting these little tubes that we need. All right. So if you're not sure about the gender of the cat, you could call that a gonadal artery and be fine. Gonadal or spermatic or testicular. Go down a bit further. There's another single tube all by itself that serves the lower part of the digestive tract, and that's the lesser or the inferior mesenteric artery. Right there.
Could you point to the superior one again, please?
Right here. Here's superior.
Mm-hmm.
It's the one that doesn't have other little red tubes. It's a second big red tube that comes down. And this is the superior or inferior mesenteric, right there. And then there's a superior. It's bigger, serves more tissue. That one's smaller and lower. As we follow the aorta down, see this red tube here and the red tube there? They come out almost at the same place anatomically at about 90-degree angles. Those are called the iliolumbar arteries. I-L-I-O, iliac, upper hip, lumbar, lower back, iliolumbar arteries. Now as we come down, the aorta starts to do this really cool thing. It starts to split into 5 vessels. As the aorta comes down, you can use your hand as a study tool. So if my hand was the aorta, here's my aorta coming down. Right there is where the 2 iliolumbars were. My thumb and my pinky represent the first 2 big red tubes. One is here, one is there. Those big pink tubes that are like a pinky and a thumb are the external iliac arteries. External iliac. We'll pick them up in just a minute and see what they do. We go a little bit further with the aorta. There's 2 more pink tubes. This is the rectum I got to get out of the way. There's 2 more pink tubes, one here, one there. Those are called the internal iliacs. They would be analogous to my ring finger and my index finger. So my pinky and my thumb are the external iliacs, ring finger, index finger, internal iliacs, and my middle finger represents a vessel that would dive under the anus and go out to the tail, and that's called the caudal. So way down deep in the little pocket down there, you probably can't see because it's full of fluid, there's another pink tube, we'll see it in the other cat, and it is called the caudal artery. And that's where we stop after the internal iliacs and the caudal. We're not quite done with the external iliacs yet, we have a little bit more to go. So here's an external iliac. Without cutting through all those organs and tissues, if I move this muscular abdominal wall out of the way, do you guys see this pink tube that's coming out of there? That's still the external iliac artery right there. As soon as you get through the abdominal body wall, there's a pink tube that comes off it. That's called the deep femoral artery, and what's left is the femoral artery, and we stop there. So if my thumb was doing that, here comes the aorta, 2 external iliacs. Follow the external iliac. There's an internal a deep femoral, and what's left is a femoral. So it'd be like a branch off my thumb. Same with the other side. If this is an external iliac, once you get through the muscular wall of the abdomen, there's a deep femoral artery, and what's left is a femoral artery. The only thing on this cat is I've only dissected out the left half of it. So if something gets damaged or destroyed, I can go and open the other side if I need to, but we'll just leave it alone for now. Okay, walk through these with me. And